Hey guys, it's Chris from Rat Time. Chris Morgan come down, and we're gonna do a little educational video here on educating some people on scoring whitetail. I'm getting a little bit of feedback saying that this deer scores 100 inches.
That's a giant.
I've scored a few in my day, and this is definitely not 100 inches. This is a great typical 8-point. It's got an abnormal drop, but just gonna do a little educational. We'll score this thing. Kind of show you on camera how I do it. I can look at one and tell you about what it is. And when I picked him up, I said that's 140-inch 8-point. I thought a little better, but I figure roughly 140 is what I said to myself when I picked him up. And we got us a tag for this. I actually got in touch with the game warden, so I know state of West Virginia it's illegal to pick up deadheads, but I did get a salvage tag for it and got it checked in. So I'm gonna kind of show you how I do this. I like to get the greatest spread, inside spread first. It's kind of the easiest one to get. You get that greatest inside spread. You get 4 circumference measurements with an 8-point. You go out here on the main beam and you kind of go center of that main beam, find center, and that's your 4th. Kind of center here and then center there. I made marks on these main beams. You kind of make a straight line from where the beam is to the beam is, and you make a mark, and you measure your tine length from those marks to get your tine length.
Now the other day, whenever we scored this, we went from here on the inside.
Yeah.
We didn't go, straight right here with the beam the way that we should. We was just rough scoring it, trying to see how big it was.
Yeah, just something real quick. But I always go in the inside, and you kind of find I always take the measuring tape back and forth and find the greatest spread. You don't want to be, diagonal with the tape measure, because you don't want to, which actually diagonal it's less on this, but the greatest spread on this deer is 20 1/4 is the greatest inside spread. This thing's tiny. If you could see that, I'll make a mark and show you on the camera so you don't think I kind of get it even right there. I made a mark. 20 1/4 inside spread. And next we want to go with the beam length. And what you do on a beam length, you go down here to the base, the burr, kind of on this outside edge. You want to follow that outside edge all the way up the beam. I go measure from the burr right here on the outside edge. I have to get Chris to kind of help me on this to just help me hold this measuring tape, push it into the beam right there.
You want to go over here to where you want to turn it around to the camera so they can see.
I'll make a mark on it. I'll make a mark on it and
which we can leave it. We'll show them on that side.
back it to the camera.
Yeah.
Oh, right there. It's 21 1/4 inches. I don't know if I do it again. Let's do it one more time. Right there. Push it in. Hold it right there. Make sure it's.
Let me go around that.
Make sure it's touching the antler right there. Hold it.
Okay.
There it is. 22 inches. Main beam, right main beam. 22 inches.
I'll look this side.
Hold it up right.
Measure the waist.
get it. Once that gets locked, push it right there. Hold it tight
There,
right
I
there.
got it.
All right. Hold it right there.
See what he's doing?
It's 21 1/4 inch. I mean, if you want to get really professional about it, get you a steel cable. It's got some flex in it. I mean, this is just a really thin measuring tape. It's just giving you an idea. I mean, it's not going into books or anything. We're just giving you an idea of what this deer really is on video, and we wanted to.
Just try to help you out in case
Yeah.
y'all want to score your deer or
Yeah.
a deer you got hanging on your wall.
So the left brow is 5.5.
5.5.
And they always score to the nearest eighth when they do this legitimately. That was the left brow. Okay. This is the left. G2 is 9 inches. Left 3 is 7 inches. Right brow, it's 5.5. G2 is actually 9 1/8.
9 1/8.
1/8, yeah. And the left or right G3 is 7.5. Okay, then your, like you say, your circumferences. This thing has 5.5 inch bases. It's crazy. That's really good bases. 5.5 inches on the right for circumference. And on the second one is between the brow and the G2. You kind of go center. You know, find the smallest point, I guess. Is this has 4.5. And your third circumference is 4 inches. Like I say, on the main beam, you go center for your fourth circumference. You go dead center, and this thing has crazy mass all the way out to the ends, and there's 3 inches on the money. 3 inches. 5.5. 4.5. Third one is 4. The last one is 3.
He's about perfect. That's what the other
3
side was.
inches. Alright, I think that's
Kicker.
oh your abnormal. When I score deer, I mean, if it's on its head, I'm gonna. If it's over an inch, legally they
Show him what you
count it.
measure.
This he has a inch and a quarter drop. Inch and a quarter
Okay.
drop. So
Right here's the numbers. This is all the measurements. See, left beam, right beam. That's the greatest inside spread. Down there is your 1.25. That's that little kicker. And what you do, you just add it all together.
Let's do some adding.
You just gotta know what codes to put in for a calculator.
So,
Are you ready? Here's the
21. We'll go ahead and do that.
Yeah,
let's
we'll
do
do
the left
left.
beam.
it's 21.25,
Okay.
5.5, 9,
9 plus
7,
7 plus
5.5, 4.5, 4,
4,
and 3.
3.
What you got on that one there?
59.75.
59.75. 75 is 3/4,
Yeah.
if anybody didn't know that. Okay, now you're right.
Okay, to the right.
22,
22,
5.5,
5,
9.175.
9.175. Okay.
Okay, it's 7.5,
Plus
5.5,
plus 4.5.
Yep.
Plus
4,
4,
and 3.
3. 61.175.
61.175. That's 61 and 1/8.
Okay.
Now your greatest inside spread is 20.
20. Let's just add them all up. So 61.175 plus
59.75
plus
20.25.
20.25.
1.25. You ain't even got your kicker on there.
Plus 1.25.
So we actually done it right that time, and we got a
One
whole more.
142.425.
25. So
Actually, if you go gross score, he's over 140.
well,
What's actually on his head?
that right there would be considered a deductible, though. Wouldn't it?
Well, to do a net score, you take all those numbers. It's like the 21.25 and the 22. So you'll subtract that. See, those are identical. So you'll subtract that.
From that side.
Yeah, you subtract the.
So
this
really,
one,
anything that's different from it being perfect from this side,
right,
you're going
you
to
subtract it to
so
get
the
the net
circumference
score.
was about perfect. So really, you got 1/8 here that he didn't have over here.
Yeah.
And you've got a 1/2 inch that he didn't have over here.
So
So
really,
you've got-
if you net scored him, he's still going to be
That's
right
5/8 that you're losing, and you're going to be losing the 1.25. So
Yeah.
you're going to be losing 2 inches. So 142.425. That's what 142 and 3/8. So you would be looking at 140.
So he's still 140 inches, even if you take the deductions away.
That's how you add them up.
Great deer.
He was an
Great.
excellent deer.
Great find. I hate finding them this way. As a deadhead. I found a couple in my life, but never nothing like this. It's a big deer. And we're going to go in my room, my bedroom where I actually have my trophies, and we're going to kind of, we'll stop it right here, but we're going to start it back in a minute, and Chris will just add it to it. But we're going to go in and just show you, compared to some deer that I have that's in the 50s, to kind of show you what he really is. Great deer. Here he is compared to some, these are roughly close to 30s deer. This one is over 30. He's closer to 40. Just compared to.
Get on this side of you. What's that down there?
He's in the 30s.
He's a 30.
Yeah, 8-pointer.
Pretty tall wreck, ain't he?
Oh yeah, he's got really good G2s and G3s. I killed that buck in 2016. There's
the trophies.
There's a 153. He kind of compared.
That's a nice buck.
That's the non-typical. He's a 159. He has all kinds of trash. He actually has 18 scored points. He's got a big chicken foot off the back, kind of
I see it.
compared to him. And then that's my biggest buck. Killed in 2010. He's a typical 12. He has 16 scoreable points.
What was he?
He's a 168 and 6/8.
168. Look at that. That's a pretty good buck, folks.
Yeah, good find. Just a little comparison.
Up here is you 120s.
Yeah, them some.
That there's probably like 115 or something.
Now
He lost a
all those
lot.
are really older deer, and we have a whole lot of history with that 5 point. Had a whole lot of history with that 9 point. I had 3 years of history with that 9. I knew all them bucks, all of them. I have a lot of history with. But killed that buck in 2017. Actually killed him and a coyote, the same sit. The coyote chased him in. I killed the buck, and the coyote came in on the trail, and I killed the coyote too, off stand. It's been a minute on all these deer. I actually hunted that deer over there I killed him in 2010. It's probably my most memorable hunt ever. I chased that deer for over 5 years, and we caught him midnight because that's most of the time that's when he showed up. I killed him on November the 13th, 2010, about 9:30 in the morning, roughly 9:30, 10 o'clock. I'd sit in a stand for 7 days, and I had a friend of mine tell me where the deer was actually crossing, and he'd actually seen him twice that week prior to when I started hunting him, because I was always losing him. October he would vanish, and where the guy seen him at, it kind of made sense, and I started hunting there. I took 13 days vacation, and at that time I'd hunted a few days until I talked to that guy, and he told me where he saw him at, and I went and hung a stand. Sat in that stand for 7 days, and I saw a 5 point, a spike, and a few doe in 7 days, and I was so frustrated. It was my last day. At this time, I don't think Sunday hunting was available. It was illegal to hunt on Sundays at that time. This was my last day of my vacation. I killed him on a Saturday. I'll never forget it. And I was sitting there, and I watched the sun come over the ridge, and I was real frustrated because I hadn't seen him. And I just started talking to God, man. I was like, God, I want this deer with all of my heart. I've hunted this deer. I've pursued this deer for 5 years, and I've gave so much time and effort into this one animal, and I'd be so grateful if you would just give me an opportunity. And the voice of the Lord, man, I've been saved for 16 years. I know how God speaks, and when I hear Him speak. So God tells me to get down out of my stand, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna trust you. I'm gonna get down. So I get down out of the stand, and I'm just standing at the base of the tree, just like, what now? What do I do now? So there's a deer trail that kind of come around by me, and I started walking that trail, following that trail, and I get out, in a real pretty swag, beautiful frosty morning. I mean, the frost looked like it was a snow, on the ground. It was really cold, but I got over in that little drainage, in the kind of head of a drainage. I call them a swag, just a real pretty deep holler. And he'd been fighting. There was actually 3 bucks. They were fighting over a doe, and I didn't know it. I found blood. I started tracking that blood, and I tracked that blood out into an old logging road. And my 4-wheeler was parked on the main top because I'd walked down that ridge to hunt. And I said, I'll just walk this road back up to my 4-wheeler. And, going up out of there, it's previously logged, a year or 2 maybe, where I was at there hunting. It'd been logged in the last couple of years of me hunting it. But they had made some old tram roads that they punched out in another little drain, and they just went out there and dead end. And I said, I'm going to walk out there and just maybe sit in the head of that little drain. And I started to walk that road, and when I did, there was brush tops laying everywhere from it being logged, and I heard something come out of the brush, and it was a doe. She ran right out in front of me, at this point she was like 15 steps, not 15 yards. I'm talking 15 steps. She was right there. She almost ran over top of me. And when she did come out, I was like, I looked over the edge, you know, and I saw his rack. I saw his left side coming out of that brush top. And he followed her track for track. And I come to full draw, and he came out in the road, and I bat, and he stops. He just turns broadside, exactly the way I mounted him. That's how I shot him. He was standing that way. And I shot him at 15 steps on the ground. And he ran to the end of that road and started up the bank on the other side, and he just started stumbling backwards. And I could not touch him for over an hour. I just laid there and cried, thanking God, because I know that
Couldn't believe it.
I know God that gave me that deer, and probably my most memorable, my most grateful hunt ever is that deer, and he's my biggest deer. He's the biggest deer I have on my wall. I'll probably, I hope and pray that I kill a deer bigger than that someday, but it's been a minute, and I've come close, but that drop time buck, I also pursued him for 5 years. He was actually bigger. Hit deer was really old. Both those deer are 7+, 8-year-old. My cousin shot that buck the year before. He shoulder shot him.
Is that the 12?
Huh?
Is that the 12?
The drop time.
Yeah.
Buck here. He shoulder shot him, and we thought he had passed, but he ended up coming back, and when he did, he put that drop tine on. He got about a 4 or 5 inch drop, and a bunch of trash. If you could see the backside of him, I mean, he's got long beams. You come around here, he's got really that character of that right beam, how it comes up and makes that. Because he always had been a 10-point. He had a 10-point frame the whole pursuit of him every year. And then that year, 2018, he kind of turned into a 9-point with a bunch of trash. I had no history with that deer. I actually killed that deer. I used to work over in towards Bluefield.
That's a
called
giant.
Burnt Mountain. He's 153 inches. I killed him in a rut on a doe. This deer here all these deer was from a lease. This one was from a lease. Like I said, I killed him in 16, or it might be backwards. One of them 16 and 17. I can't remember exactly if this one was 16. I think this one was 16 and then killed him 17. Killed this 2012. We had I had so much history with this deer. I'd actually passed him 2 years. He was an 8-point in 2 years. He actually turned into a 10 with two kickers off his base here. Killed this deer on October the 29th. We had a snowstorm set in here in 2012 with we got like 23 inches of snow that day. But I knew with that big snow coming, I was feeding pretty heavy, and I had him between 2 feeders. He was bouncing back and forth, and I told my wife when I got home from work, I was in the mines at that time, and I told her, I was like, I'm gonna have to get up there and get some feed out, because it was coming close to the weekend. I was gonna get an opportunity to hunt. And
When'd you kill that buck?
2012.
Is that a local buck?
That's here.
I think I've seen that buck. I had a buck similar. I don't know where he went, man.
Yeah.
I named him Big Boy, and his horns slanted forward like that.
This was 2012, but crazy hunt. I went to that first spot. I had him and got some feed out, and I was on my way to the other spot, and I come around the curve, and at this time there was snow dabs falling as bigger than silver dollars. I mean, they was just big snowflakes. The ground was getting covered. And I come around a gas line that runs off there, and there he stands with some tree branches hanging in his rack. He looked like a freak standing there with all that tree hanging in his. So when he sees me, he does not, he's not alarmed at all. He starts walking back towards my feeder. My feeder's just right around the curve. He'd been there eating what he'd been doing. So snow falling, pouring snow. So When he sees me, he turns and goes back towards my feeder. So I park the four-wheeler, got my bow, and I started pursuing him around that logging road. Because, I mean, he was not alarmed at all. It's crazy. So I start tracking him around through there, following him. You know, he's above the road walking. He's facing away from me. I'm tracking him. I'm watching him, you know. And every time he would walk, I would walk, try to make up some distance to get a closer shot on him. And I got within about 40 yards of him. And he heard me sneaking up on him because it was, you know, real wet snow. The ground was wet, easy to stalk. But I stalked up on him about 40 yards. And I took a quartering away shot, and I aimed, you know, behind the rib, quartering away, you know, hoping it would come out that off shoulder. And I actually hit the back hip. I pulled when I shot, hit him in the back hip. And he takes off running, and I take off running. I tried to outrun him through it because he had to go through a little drain, and down the road went straight. And I went through there running, trying to put another arrow in my bow. And got over there, and I'm watching him go up the hill. And I finally get an arrow knocked and get my trigger on there. And I had like a 50 or 60 yard pin at that time. And I knew if he had crested that hill that I'd probably, you know, I'd lost him. I was like, if he goes over the other side, the snow was pouring, and I was like, I'll lose him. So I did a Hail Mary. And and I actually hit him, and I knocked him off his feet the second shot, and he flipped all the way back down the mountain to me. And at that time, I'm trying to get another arrow in, you know, and I get another arrow knocked while he's flipping down that mountain. And I get that arrow knocked, and my trigger at this point is froze up, and I can't get it to go back on my loop. And he's laying like right there, and I'm trying to get back on his feet, and I'm trying to get my trigger on that loop, and I finally get it snapped on there, and come to full draw again. And when I did, he gets his foot back under him, and he kind of veers to the right and goes back out to where I came from stalking him. And I'll never forget it. I run back out there as fast as I could, and couldn't see. The ground was covered at this point. Couldn't really see where he went to. And I went all the way back to where he got on his foot and got up there, and I started tracking his blood. Tracked his blood back out to that gas line. There was one spot on that gas line where the snow wasn't sticking. It was a muddy spot, and I seen his track. And I knew he'd went down the gas line at that point, so I started tracking him down the gas line, and I actually found him. He wasn't laying another 30 yards on a little point right there. It killed him. So, great story. That deer had a lot of history with him, had 4 or 5 years of history with him. This deer here, I had no history with. It was middle of the rut, and I another week's vacation, hadn't seen a whole lot. So I started ground hunting. I'm a firm believer in ground hunting. I mean, I'm a little older now. It's not as easy, but as a young man hunting, I was, you know, I like stalk hunt, spot stalk. You know, especially when it's raining, wet out. It kind of you know gives you a little bit of favor, I guess. You know, to actually beat their nose and their ears. But I'd stalk hunted the ridge, and I went way out to the end of our gate where our property line ends, and there was scrape after scrape after scrape all along that ridge. And I was like, man, there's a hot buck here somewhere. I mean, he's tore this ridge up today. So I was on my way back, and I was probably 150 yards from my four-wheeler where I'd parked out there. And I come around a little bend, and my tree stand was down in a big saddle off to my right. So when I come around that point, kind of the road hooked like that, and when I come around that point, he steps out the road in front of me, and he kind of takes off running, and I, you know, had an arrow knock. So I come to full draw, and he's running away, and he about 40 yards. I hollered, hey, and when I hollered, he stopped and looked back. You see this? You can come over here. His head was back around here on his vitals because he was turned really hard. See that scar?
Mm-hmm.
That scar across his nose. And he had his head kind of turned all the way around. And when I released, I heard my arrow thump. I was like, oh man, I smoked him. So he goes down the hill towards that saddle where my tree stand was. And, you know, I'm standing here watching him. I'm like, oh, come on. fall over, fall over, fall over. And he don't fall over. I was like, what the heck? I know I put a good shot on that deer. So he hit a little logging road, which I knew there was a point that run off there to my right. There's a logging road that went around, and he had to go way out on that point, and he'd come right back down under me. So when he hit that road, I just dropped off the back side. And one of those little flats where a tree had uprooted, we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
I, run over the hill, get down there, and find me one of them little flats, and I set about 25 yards over that logging road. About 10 minutes, here he come. It was like being in a tree stand. He come right under me. I bat. He stops, broadside, looks up the hill. I heart shot him. He runs about 40, 50 yards and falls down into the hollow.
Smoked it.
Smoked him.
That's a good story.
It's crazy. Crazy. The coyote chased that feller in. I knew that deer. I actually have a shed from him. This deer here came from, my wife called this deer Brutus. She says this is her deer. She saw him every day when I wasn't here. And I actually killed him right here at the house. That deer was so smart. When he would come in and eat at the feeder, at that time I was feeding him a 5-gallon bucket with a piece of PVC 4-inch pipe. And just one of those homemade feeders, And that deer would come in and he would stand in the back of that tree and he would reach his head around and he would get a bite of that corn out of that pipe. And he wouldn't never stay real long. And he would turn on a dime and leave. I mean, he'd never stay 5-10 minutes tops, and he would just turn and leave. And I told her, I said, that deer's gonna be so hard to kill. I chased him for a couple of years, before I got the opportunity at him. He was a 9-point 2 years prior, and he kind of put a little split on his 3 right there, turned into a typical 8. But I took that quarter 2 shot, and I took when he put his head down to get the bite of feed, I shot him right through the top of the back right there.
Yeah.
And he run about 75 yards, 80 yards up the holler.
That's tough, wasn't he?
But he's a really, really smart deer. When they get that 4.5, 5.5 year old, they're just turning into a completely different animal. I have a few more in there. I mean, we may shoot another little video, but
yep, we'll get that another time.
yeah.
Yep, there's his deadhead he found.
Yeah. 100 inches? Come on now. Great deer. You know what time it is?
It's rack time.